A reading from the Acts of the Apostles. Then Peter stood up with the 11, raised his voice, and proclaimed, "You who are Jews, indeed all of you staying in Jerusalem, let this be known to you and listen to my words. You who are Israelites, hear these words. Jesus the Nazarene was a man condemned to you by God with mighty deeds and wonders and signs, which God worked through him in your midst, as you yourselves know. This man delivered up by the set plan and foreknowledge of God, you killed, using lawless men to crucify him. But God raised him up, releasing him from the throes of death, because it was impossible for him to be held by it. For David says of him, 'I saw the Lord ever before me. With him at my right hand, I shall not be disturbed. Therefore, my heart has been glad, and my tongue has exulted. My flesh also will dwell in hope. Because you will not abandon my soul to the netherworld, nor will you suffer your body, your Holy One, to see corruption. You have made known to me the paths of life. You will fill me with joy in your presence.' My brothers, one can confidently say to you about the patriarch David that he died and was buried, and his tomb is in our midst to this day. But since he was a prophet and knew that God had sworn an oath to him that he would set one of his descendants upon his throne, he foresaw and spoke of the resurrection of the Christ, and neither was he abandoned to the netherworld, nor did his flesh see corruption. God raised this Jesus. Of this we all are witnesses. Exalted at the right hand of God, he received the promise of the Holy Spirit from the Father and poured him forth, as you see and hear." The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God. A reading from the first letter of St. Peter. Beloved, if you invoke as Father him who judges impartially according to each one's works, conduct yourselves with reverence during the time of your sojourning, realizing that you were ransomed from your futile conduct, handed on by your ancestors, not with perishable things like silver or gold, but with the precious blood of Christ, as of a spotless, unblemished lamb. He was known before the foundation of the world, but revealed in the final time for you, who through him believe in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope are in God. The word of the Lord.
The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. That very day, the first day of the week, 2 of Jesus' disciples were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus, and they were conversing about all the things that had occurred. And it happened that while they were conversing and debating, Jesus himself drew near and walked with them, but their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing as you walk along?" They stopped, looking downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, said to him in reply, "Are you the only visitor to Jerusalem who does not know of the things that have taken place there in these days?" And he replied to them, "What sort of things?" They said to him, "The things that happened to Jesus the Nazarene, who was a prophet mighty in deed and word before God and all the people. How our chief priests and rulers both handed him over to a sentence of death and crucified him. But we were hoping that he would be the one to redeem Israel. And besides all this, it is now the 3rd day since this took place. Some women from our group, however, have astounded us. They were at the tomb early in the morning and did not find his body. They came back and reported that they had indeed seen a vision of angels who announced that he was alive. Then some of those with us went to the tomb and found things just as the women had described, but him they did not see. And he said to them, "Oh, how foolish you are! How slow of heart to believe all that the prophets spoke! Was it not necessary that the Christ should suffer these things and enter into his glory?" Then, beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted to them what referred to him in all the scriptures. As they approached the village to which they were going, he gave the impression that he was going on farther. But they urged him, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening and the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. And it happened that while he was with them at table, he took bread, said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. With that, their eyes were opened and they recognized him, but he vanished from their sight. Then they said to each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he spoke to us on the way and opened the scriptures to us?" So they set out at once and returned to Jerusalem, where they found gathered together the 11 and those with them who were saying, "The Lord has truly been raised and has appeared to Simon." Then the two recounted what had taken place on the way and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
The road to Emmaus is one of those stories that has a lot of different angles you can look at it from. One of the angles that I find the most beneficial to me is realizing even some of the disciples who walked with Jesus on this earth sometimes just didn't get it. There are times that we kind of feel like if you're following Jesus Christ and you're really praying well and you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, everything's going to just suddenly make sense. And a lot of times, a lot of things do make more sense when you have that life of prayer, that life of study, that life of knowing our faith well and trying to live it to the best of our ability. A lot of things do make sense. But you know, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you're like, "God, I just don't understand you." Place yourself in the role of these two disciples who are walking the road to Emmaus. They've been following Jesus long enough that they've traveled to Jerusalem with him. They're expecting that he is going to be announced as the Messiah. And the next thing they know, he's dead. What happened? I mean, we know how the story ends, but they didn't. And they're left in this state of just saying, "Lord, I don't understand. Why would you let him have so many great miracles? Why would so many good things happen with this person?" And then they're gone like that. So many times in our own lives we say similar things. Why would this person who's so good get cancer? Why would this person have this downfall in their life? Why would this person have this financial struggle? Lord, why? I just don't understand. And sometimes it's good to hear in the scriptures, even those who walked alongside Jesus Christ didn't always understand. They didn't. Jesus even calls them foolish for not getting it. And we're all a little foolish at times. A piece of the puzzle, though, is sometimes we have to sit down and take the time to be silent and ask God why. And realize the answer may not come the way we expect it. As these disciples walked along the road to Emmaus, They are not expecting to find an answer. They're not expecting, especially amongst a stranger who appears not to have any clue what's going on, an answer to what's going on in their lives. But you know, sometimes that is exactly how God speaks to us. You're having a rough week, rough month, rough year. You happen along talking to somebody in an elevator. You talk to somebody walking down the street. You bump into somebody at some tourist place, somebody you have no knowledge of. And they say something and suddenly it clicks. That's why God let me go through that. And sometimes it's a year, 2 years, 10 years, decades later, before you can look back on an event and go, Lord, now I get it. I understand. What does it mean to have faith? It doesn't mean that we always understand right in the moment. Having faith is saying, particularly in those times when I don't understand, Lord, I do believe. I don't understand why you're doing this. I'm not sure why you're letting this rough situation go on in my life. But I do believe. I believe that you love me. I believe that you care about what happens in my life. I believe that you do have a plan. Some of our best prayers are those times that we just say to God, God, here I am. I don't understand, but I do believe. Lord, I do believe. Help my unbelief.